Nintendo's an anomaly. They're a tech company that's years behind in technology. They notoriously go after fan content of all kinds. Very limited third party support, small library, limited online infrastructure, high prices, and low discounts. But despite all of that, it's extremely successful. $12 billion, 25% year over year increase in profit or revenue, my bad. The richest company in Japan at the start of 2024, zero debt with $11 billion in cash. Unheard of for a tech company. Dethroned PlayStation by having the most successful console launch of all time with the Switch 2. 3.5 million copies within 4 days. One of the highest grossing movies of all time in the Super Mario Bros. Movie. So, what do they have that other game companies don't? Well, I don't think they are a game company. You see, when you think of Nintendo, you usually think of Sega or Ubisoft or PlayStation or Xbox. And that makes sense, right? They make video games, they're a video game company. But I think that Nintendo takes a different approach to this, right? Similar to how Ferrari makes cars, Gucci makes bags, Louis Vuitton makes clothes, and Rolex makes watches. Nintendo also makes games, but they have a certain legacy or prestige to them that makes them more on brand with a luxury company than a company associated with video games, i.e. Activision. So why is that? Well, before we talk about Nintendo, a certain game company, we have to talk about games in general. Video games have a very low perceived value, especially in the PC sphere. First of all, there's infinite supply of games. That's a challenge. How can you make something have a high value when there's infinite supply of them? Right? Games vary wildly in quality and exposure. Some games will either be top tier, some of the best experiences you'll ever play, and others will just be complete and utter horseradish, man. Is horseradish bad? But anyway, discounts are frequent. Come on, Steam Summer Sale, Humble Bundles, Steam Winter Sale, PlayStation Plus free games, Xbox Game Passes. Free-to-play titles are constantly being released. I play Dota. That's a free-to-play game. I play Warframe. That's a free-to-play game. There's League. There's Fortnite over and over and over again. There's just so many free-to-play titles to have your attention. So consumers in these spheres will take their time to wait for discounts or play games that are free to begin with. From this survey at Ultra, 36% of games are purchased at full price, 32% are purchased at a discount or through bundles, and 32% of games are obtained for free. 87% of PC gamers say discounts are important. That is an absurd amount, especially when budgets are rapidly increasing. Except for Nintendo, Mario Kart 8 is over a decade old, and yet it still commands a $60 price tag. Smash Ultimate, nearly a decade old, 7 years old, right? $60 price tag. New Horizons, 5 years old, $60 price tag. This is unheard of in the gaming industry. Most prices are usually slashed within a couple of months or a couple of years, probably. How does Nintendo get away with these prices? Well, it's simple. They're a luxury company, not a game company, in my opinion. Let's go. Exclusivity. Nintendo has by far the strongest first-party IPs in the gaming industry, including the biggest franchise in history, with Pikachu in the middle right there. Mario, Kirby, I don't know why I said Kirby, Zelda, Metroid. These guys would be insane flagship titles for any video game company, let alone having all of them at once. Their legacy is on par with companies like Disney and Pixar, right? They don't drop their prices because they want you to believe that these games have these prices. Look at what Satoru Iwata says, CEO of Nintendo. He's always wanted to avoid a situation where the first people to step up and pay get punished for paying top dollar. They don't discount their games because they don't want to have this happen. Because of this exclusivity, essentially Nintendo will only be on Nintendo. Anything else with gains traction will have action taken on them, like Pokemon Uranium. Nintendo games retain their value for a very long time. Some games, have you tried to buy a DS Pokemon game? They're like $100 now. They appreciate in price. No discounts, no digital stores. What's Nintendo stays Nintendo. It's similar to luxury brands like Gucci or Ferrari. Their legacy and exclusivity demand a high price. And also, they don't discount. Let's do the second reason. Or, well, let's talk about games again. Video games have many ways to monetize. Because most games are being sold at a discounted price or for free, there has to be some way to make their investment have some return. Some games, such as EA College Football, charge a premium for early access games. Other games use microtransactions or battle passes to stoke a feeling of commitment and FOMO, which is the fear of missing out through limited time events. This obviously makes consumers feel like they're being nickeled and dimed for their wallets. I mean, come on, I have to play the game constantly to get these rewards that I have to pay for? That doesn't seem fair. Nintendo, on the other hand, they just drop the game. They usually don't have microtransactions or early access or battle passes. What they usually have is mostly the occasional DLC, like with games like Splatoon 2. Because their games never go on sale and they make consistent profit and consistent revenue, they never have to use microtransactions or early access at an absurd rate. Not only are their games complete, their games are very, very good. You feel that trust that when you buy a Nintendo game, you are buying a complete experience. This builds trust and perceived value, while also reducing buyer's remorse. It's what Iwata said on the previous slide. He doesn't want people to pay top dollar and then feel bad when the game goes on discount. So the games just don't go on discount. Much like how a Rolex is just a watch, a Nintendo game is just a game. But more importantly, Nintendo has a legacy, and I feel like that separates it the most from other game companies. While Nintendo does have a very strong act of nostalgia tied to it, what makes it truly luxury is the legacy associated with their games. Much like how a watch is passed down, Nintendo has an enduring legacy of quality throughout the years that connects generations, much like the place of its headquarters, Kyoto, which is very strange for a game company to be in an industry where most companies, are in fast-paced, cutthroat places like Silicon Valley or Tokyo. Nintendo's location describes it as a company, slower paced, it's traditional, it's full of legacy. When you think of family, you think of Nintendo, much like how when you think of success, you think of Gucci, you think of Rolex. Look at Shigeru Miyamoto. For Nintendo, the idea of games is something that brings together in the living room and interacts like a connective issue. And when we talk about games, it really just happens in the living room. Nintendo directly targets these demographics, these families who want to enjoy the tradition of playing a Nintendo game. Families will play Nintendo games together through generations. Some father might have seen his son play Mario 64 while he played Super Mario Brothers, and that same father will become a grandfather who watches his kids play Odyssey while he remembers Mario Brothers. And I think that's just some of the reasons why Nintendo isn't a game company. Thank you.